Detroit Lions fans, Detroit Den 313 back with another episode. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited. I think people are going to be excited if you didn't see the thumbnail when you hear what we're talking about today. I think it can get controversial. I think there can get argumentative. I think some people are going to be like, why this, why that? What about Miles? What about this? Hot and heavy today. But before we get going, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Helps us out tremendously, man. Again, for the followers who don't understand, if you are not subscribed, right? If you have not hit a subscribe button, you're not subscribed. So, and I say that because of the few people who have asked that question, like, hey man, how am I not in the giveaways? How am I not? You have to hit that subscribe button. So you don't just get it just because you come back and watch our episodes. Anyway, that stuff out of the way. Steve, what are we doing? How are we doing it? What's going on?
I think we have on our agenda today two of the most talked about potential Detroit Lions in draft history, William. All right. Our short time of doing podcasting coming up on year 3 here. I don't think I've ever had more questions about two players in Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. And I get it. We're a Detroit Lions podcast. We're based in Michigan, Michigan Wolverines. We have a lot of Michigan Wolverines fans. You're looking at two of them right here. We understand the hype. So we'll talk about it. It might be some, like Will said, it might be some bad news for a lot of you guys. It might be some things you guys don't want to hear, but we're going to talk about two Michigan monsters today, Will. We're going to talk about, let's start with Kenneth Grant. We're going to get to Mason Graham. It's a Wednesday night. The weather's getting shitty out there. Be careful. You're hunkered in the house. Sit back, hit that subscribe button. We're going to talk about a couple football players here. Mason Graham will be second. We're going to start it off with national champion Kenneth Grant and national champion Mason Graham. Let me just get that out there first and foremost. But let's start with the big man here, 78. Kenneth, how do you feel about him, Will?
Good football player. Good football player. I think he's going to come into the NFL and be just a solid guy. It's going to be solid. I don't think you're going to have a superstar written by his name. I think you're going to have a long veteran NFL career, which is good. Which is good, man. So I'm not. If we got Kenneth Grant, I wouldn't exactly be like, oh my God, we got Kenneth Grant, man. This is crazy or whatever. But I'd be like, okay, good piece. Good piece. So that's what I see out of him. Everything is good. You know what I mean? It's not great though. It's not great. I don't see greatness. I see solid. I see solid. I see really good across the board. Big, strong guy. Gets off the ball decent. You know, I wouldn't by any means call him quick, but he gets off the ball decent. I wouldn't call him slow either. He's just a solid piece to me, man. So, Steve, how you feel? You feel like I'm on? Do you feel like I'm missing? Where you at?
I'm in the same exact boat. Listen, love our Michigan guys. Much respect. Appreciate everything you did. Beating Ohio State 4 straight years. Coming up on 5 national championships. Greatly appreciated. These are two of the centerpieces that you have to game plan around when you're talking about Michigan football. Kenneth Grant, when I look at his size, 6'3", 340 pounds. That's a big boy. He's athletic for 340. Now, is he going to be playing center field for the Los Angeles Dodgers anytime soon? Probably not. Okay, let's just be realistic. When we talk about athleticism, there is we have to kind of grade that on a curve. Like an athleticism for a corner isn't going to be the same type of athleticism for a 6'3", 340-pound D tackle. Kenneth Grant does do some nice things. If he's the pick for the Detroit Lions, I think I'm in the same exact boat with you. Well, I'm going to be like, okay, it's at least trenches. That's my motto this year is trench warfare. I'm at least happy that we're on the defensive line, but I think that I can almost guarantee you that there's going to be some edge rushers that I would prefer that are going to be available. So I think that's just the boat I'm in. If this were probably any other draft and Kenneth Grant was the pick at pick 28, it'd probably be a little bit more exciting for me. But with this being an edge heavy draft, I'm just kind of leaning towards that way. It's nothing against KG. Love him. But I can guarantee you that I have 5 guys on my board. I can almost promise you that 3 out of the 5 will probably be available. So I think that's where my mindset is. But again, if Brad Holmes looks at him, if he goes to the combine and he's just blowing people away and he's manhandling some of these tackle dummies, he runs a 4.7, 4.8, God willing, and he's got a fast 10-yard split, does all the shuttle drills, looks athletic and agile. This tone could change, but I think I know what I'm seeing in Kenneth Grant because I've watched him play a lot of times at Michigan. I know exactly what we're getting. We're more familiar with Michigan Wolverines than probably any other school. So that's the boat I'm in, Will.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, he's a guy that I'm not even entertaining at pick 28. Just being honest, like he's not. He would be into the second round now. Do I think he'll be there? I think what is it, pick 60 that we got?
Yeah.
Think that he'll be there at pick 60. Comes off the board before that. Uh, he's not a guy that I would see trading up to go get. Again, that's not any disrespect towards the man. It's just some other guys that I like. And although he is athletic, man, it takes me back to a play where I remember he ran down. What was it? A
Penn
running
State.
from behind, man. So yeah, it was that was exciting and that was special. So I'm not gonna say that he's not athletic, but I think there's some a little bit more explosive guys that I'm looking to get in this draft. So, like I said, no disrespect, man, but uh, Kenneth Grant, appreciate everything that you did for the Michigan Wolverines. But I'm drooling over your buddy. So, honestly, I just want to talk about him. I'm really talking about enough to go talk about this other guy, Nickel. Like, so can we get to that?
All
Hey,
right, hey, let's roll into it. Because
listen,
listen, real quick. Last night's episode, I think about 5 people asked about Mason Graham. All right, and we've been asked about him all like the last probably month. Mason Graham's popped up in our comments, and honestly, wasn't even really planning on talking about him. But hey, here at Detroit Den, we give the people what they want. All right, you guys want to hear about Mason Graham? We're going to talk about him. Probably might not like our answers, but we'll go ahead and start us off. How do you feel about MG55?
hey, difference maker, man. That's flat out. He's one of those guys in this draft that is a dude. Like when I think about him, I'm like, dude, plays the game nasty. I remember when he came into the University of Michigan as a freshman, I was like, when this dude is a junior or a senior, he is gonna be an absolute dog. And he did not disappoint by any means. By any means. So when I'm looking at this draft of guys, I see a lot of solid pieces, but there's not a lot of guys that I'm like, oh my God, if he was there, I would be sprinting to the podium to go get him. He's a sprint to the podium guy for me. Just the thought of having Mason Graham next to Aleem McNeil. And guys, I'm gonna get far fetched, but I want you to sit down, close your eyes, and envision what I'm talking about right now. Aiden Hutchinson next to Mason Graham, who's next to Aleem McNeil, who's next to
Someone
Josh
we get in the
Sweat.
second. Yeah, okay. I was going to say
Josh
someone we
Sweat.
get in the second round.
Josh Sweat. Right. Just envision that D line with Levi Onwuzurike as a backup, with Zadarius Smith as a backup, with DJ Reader as a backup. What are we talking about? Josh Pascal, backup. What are we talking about right now? Steve, you say something, and I'm not gonna go that far to it physically doing something to me in my pants. I'm
Say
not.
it.
I'm
It
not
makes
gonna
you
go that
hard.
far.
It makes you hard, doesn't it?
I'm not gonna go
Another
that far.
man makes you
But
hard.
but I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you this. The excitement that it brings me. I'm ready. If I had to give up a pinky finger to make it happen, listen, I'd probably lop it off on air.
I dare
Like,
you to stand up right now.
yeah. Hey, I'm telling you, listen. I'm trying to tell you, man. It is just the thought of that group. Just I know people want to talk about getting Myles Garrett and doing these things, but when I think about that, I think about now I'm gonna have Mason Graham for the next 5 years. I get Mason Graham, I'm gonna have him for 5 years. Resign Aiden Hutchinson to a long-term deal. Already got Aleem McNeil signed. Sign Josh Sweat to a multi-year deal. This is your D line moving forward for the next seasons, right? And I still didn't break the bank. So this is how I feel that it would be a phenomenal move for the Detroit Lions. But we got a problem here. We got a problem. Will Mason be available in striking distance for Brad Holmes? And that's where the problem lies, because I look at it like this. And the only reason that I was willing to talk about it is what I'm about to say right now. He's going to be potentially a top probably 8 pick, right? Right. Yeah. He's going to be a top 8 pick. And to get into that top 8, that's different. Getting into that top 10 is different. And 10, even the top 9 is different than number 10. All right. So what we would have to do to get in there, it would be steep. So I don't think getting into that top 9 is a thing. But what I do think is potentially possible, and I hear this buzzing around just a little bit, is Mason Graham's arms are short. and he doesn't possess the body type of somebody that is typically able to do all of the things, meaning to be able to stop the run, stack, disengage, get after the passer at the NFL level. So, do some people shy away because of his attributes, because of the physical attributes? If we could get him to slide down into the teens, 11, 12, 13, then I think that's striking distance. I went back and I was looking for some trades. One that stood out for me was the Patrick Mahomes trade, where the Kansas City Chiefs came up to pick 10. They had to trade their pick 27, their third round pick, and a first round pick the following season. So, Steve, I'm going to ask you this. Would you be willing to, let's say he gets down to pick 11, pick 12. Would you be willing to swap your pick 28 for pick 11, 12, and then give up your third round pick and then give up a first round pick next season to go get the Mason Graham?
I was with you until you threw in that first round pick for next year.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't. I just can't do that, Will. Not for a rookie, not for a defensive tackle. If we're talking a generational quarterback, I'm all about it. All right. I get it. There's going to be a lot of people who call me an idiot. You don't trade up for D tackles like that. Okay. It just doesn't happen. It's fun. I love Mason Graham. Like you said, when he came out as a freshman, the NCAA has a stupid rule because Mason Graham probably would have been a first round pick as coming out after his freshman year. Probably. That's how good he was. His sophomore year was even better. Won a national championship. His third year, I thought I was thinking, hey man, he might as well just sit. Like Michigan season's not really going that well. Save your draft status, kind of like Will Johnson was doing. He rolled the dice. He played. He didn't get hurt. I think his draft stock is in through the roof right now. He's a top 10 for sure. People slide in the draft. I'm not going to say that your theory is far-fetched because it does happen. People do fall in the draft, okay? If you want us to go back and break down the last 5 years draft picks, we can show you the first rounders who we thought were going to go in the top 10, who went in probably the top 15 and just kind of slid into a different position that's more affordable for a team to trade up. Jameson Williams. I love Mason Graham. Okay. I just don't see Brad giving up that much capital for a defensive tackle in the first round. You're talking swapping picks. Nope. No problem there. The third round pick, that's a freebie. I'll give up that. No problem. Absolutely. That's for Aaron Glenn. I don't mind that one bit. Next year's first, that's probably where I have to draw the line. You do that for a quarterback. You do that for a Patrick Mahomes. Look what Patrick Mahomes has done since. Is Mason Graham going to lead us to 3 Super Bowls in the next 7 years? I don't think he's going to lead us. He could be a part of it, but I don't think you make a move like that for D tackles, William. Am I crazy?
I'm not going to say you're crazy, but I'm going to tell you this. To have that D line, right? To have that D line.
It makes me hard. I'm man enough to admit it. It does make me hard.
So I don't think you're risking much because ultimately, what are we talking about? We're talking about giving up pick 32 next year, where we still have an extra third round pick next year. We still have a second rounder. So you'd have a second rounder, which essentially is what your first round pick is anyways. You still have 2 third round picks, and then you have the rest of your draft next year. For me to have guys locked under contract, what do I need now? So if I have Aleem McNeil under contract, Mason Graham under contract, Josh Sweat under contract, Aiden Hutchinson under contract, Jack Campbell under contract, Brian Branch under contract, re-sign Kirby Joseph, hopefully have a Carlton Davis under contract. You got an Amik Robertson under contract. Who am I drafting? My offense is locked. What do I need that pick for? Who am I trying to draft? Listen, here's what I'm going to say, people. I'm not going to keep pleading my case like this. I'm going to plead my case like this. This is how I'm going to plead my case. Just a dude. Just a dude. Just a dude. I ain't even going to talk about it too much. I'm going to let it play today because you see what he's doing. He is just an absolute menace in the middle of the field. What do you think that Aiden Hutchinson is going to be doing when this guy is double team? He's splitting a double team like a grown man. What are we talking about right now? This is an animal. He plays the game with just a little bit of nasty. The motor is unbelievable. He recognizes screenplays. The guy can run. He is a 2-time state championship heavyweight wrestler. Look at him running down a late throw to the flat. Like, this is a 320-pound young man who can do all of the things. He can play stunt games. He can bull rush you. He can finesse you. He can hand fight. He'll out leverage you. He'll be tough in the run game. He can pass rush. And we're going to finish with this little bit of nasty right here. Like, see, Steve, I'm going to tell you something. My high school kids taught me something about that play right there. They said they love these type of plays because they said, "Hey, coach, did you see that when they did stuff like this?" They said, "Did you see that I made that kid finish in missionary? Did you see I made that kid finish in the missionary position? Did you see that?" When we're talking about Mason Graham, we're talking about him coming to the NFL and making grown men finish in the missionary position. I'm going to say it again. Aiden Hutchinson, Mason Graham, Aleem McNeil, right? Josh Sweat, we go sign him for half of what we would have paid for a Myles Garrett, right? Not. We're not going to break the bank. And then we're talking about Levi Onwuzurike. Then we're talking about Zadarius Smith. Then we're talking about DJ Reader. And we still have in this draft our second round pick to go get somebody, which there's a lot of dudes that I like in the second round. We still have an additional third round pick, even though we gave up one of our third round picks to go get somebody. We still got a fourth round pick, and Brad Holmes has shown that he can go out and get some pieces. Hey, I see you guys putting in the comments, F them picks to go get guys like Myles Garrett. I'm saying instead of getting Myles Garrett on a 2-year rental, go get Mason Graham for 5 years, sign Aiden Hutchinson for a lifetime contract when you re-sign him, when he re-ups. Listen, Steve, this defense is different because we haven't even got into the pieces that are going to be there in the second round, or trading back up into the second round and maybe going back. And I'm gonna keep leaving y'all some breadcrumbs. Maybe going back to our draft well. If you know where our draft well, it's two main draft wells I feel like we got for the Detroit Lions. But maybe we trade up to get a pick where that doesn't typically have first round value, and there's two positions, like really three positions don't really have that first. I'm trying to leave breadcrumbs for y'all, but maybe we trade back up into that second round and go get that piece. And now this defense looks let Mekhi Wingo come back, and then maybe we can just let him play some edge stuff and do some cool stuff out on that edge, run that 4-6 that he runs out there. Man, this defense can get different with that recipe for me. That is the sauce that Will is believing in. I don't think it breaks any banks. I think it's a less risk reward. You go get that Myles Garrett, you go get that Trey Hendrickson. Are they going to be dogs? Absolutely, they're going to be dogs. But if one of them gets hurt, we're back in the same boat that we were in this year. We're back looking for that other guy that can support Aiden. Right? Why do that with one piece when you can have 3, 4 extra pieces to depend on? Spread that wealth out. Give Josh Sweat a little bit of it. Give Mason Graham a little bit. Let Zadarius get a little bit of that action. Man, maybe now and then every day, maybe Levi Onwuzurike gets a little bit, and then the other couple draft picks that we're going to talk about later. Steve, I don't know, man. I do have a contingency that we will talk about later, but all I'm going to do for the rest of my time, hopefully other teams, because, people come in and spy on us. Hopefully these other GMs, aren't spying on our show, getting the sauce, right? But all I'm going to scream after this is, man, Mason Graham's arms are so short. Nobody drafts him. The hype isn't real. Just leave him alone. And please just let him slide. The only hope that I truly think that we have, Steve, is these edge rushers going to the draft and testing out of this world. And then Jackson Dart has an amazing pro day that blows people's mind. So you get a couple extra quarterbacks going. You get a couple of guys that are testing out of this world from the edge rusher positions. Maybe a couple teams decide to take some linemen. Maybe somebody trades out of there to go get a quarterback. And then next thing you know, Graham is now at pick 10, 11, 12, which I think is striking distance for Brad Holmes. Now, when we're starting talking about 6, 7, the Raiders taking them or something like that, that's going to be mission impossible, I think, for the Detroit Lions. But man, I couldn't give up a third round pick, a first round pick, and, swapping first round picks and pick 32 next year fast enough. If it's me, that's my 2 cents on it. Maybe I'm nuts.
William, let me back up about 10 minutes ago. Steve Perkins always finishes in missionary. Okay, first and foremost, let's just get that out there. Sometimes in the range of 1 to 4 minutes, so somewhere in there. That's standard.
Sarah, Sarah, Sarah,
Standard
Sarah,
night.
I need confirmation.
She ain't on her way for no reason, but what are we talking about here? Two, I gotta reel you in. I gotta reel you in from Fantasy World. Will I gotta reel you in. First and foremost, let me start off with I flat out lied to everyone yesterday. I do have a number one player in this draft, and it is Mason Graham. But I'm realistic, Will. He's not going to be available after pick 10. Okay. And if by some miracle a team in the top 10 doesn't want the most dominant interior defensive lineman, arguably since Aaron Donald, this is Braden Fisk from last year on a whole bunch of steroids. Okay. That's how much I love Mason Graham. There's other teams that can do these same trades, Will. Okay. And the main thing is wherever you're trading, that team has to be willing to move back to 28. We don't know what that's going to look like for another team, whether it's, I don't know. I'm just throwing out a team, the Jets, the Raiders, the Green Bay Packers. They have to be willing to give up their pick and say, I might really like another edge rusher here and move all the way back to 28. It's got to make sense for both teams.
Yeah.
I know that I think that our best hope is somehow Steven will have to sit down off camera and figure out some sort of scandal to get involved with Mason Graham and say that he kicked a puppy crossing a street or something for him to slip, because that's really all it's going to take. I know he's going to go to the combine and test off the charts as well. I don't care what those edges are doing. Mason Graham's probably going to lead the pack in all of the defensive linemen athletic categories: speed, agility, power, bench press, squat, high jump. He's probably going to be in the top 3 in every single category. So it really doesn't matter to me what the other edges do. Listen, I love your theory, Will. I really do. I really love the image of that D-line. I think you could have even thrown in as just a wild card, maybe take another flyer on Marcus Davenport as well as just an anchor, as a second string or third string defensive lineman, as a oh shit, just in case we get into the same position we were in this year where we were picking up practice squatters. Just a name maybe we could think about. Hey, we got a Mason Graham. Our starting 4 is set. Our second 4 is set. Maybe we throw in another thing, and that just continues our theory of first wave monsters, second wave monsters, third waves. You got a guy who was potentially an all-pro and Marcus Davenport still coming off the sidelines and get some reps too. So love your theory, but when it comes to trading, I think it's just far-fetched. The people have asked, what's the price? What's the price of trading up for Mason Graham? That's probably the absolute bare minimum to get a phone call, is swapping first, giving up a third, and a future first. That's probably bare minimum for depending on how high you have to go. And another factor is there's a team that picks ahead of us, Will, that I don't foresee letting Mason Graham get out of their hands. And that's Jim Harbaugh of the Chargers. Okay. If there's anyone out there who knows more about Mason Graham than any other person in the world, it's probably the guy that sat in his parents' living room and recruited him to come to Michigan. So I would be a little surprised. That's how Jim Harbaugh plays ball too. He did it last year, beefed up his offensive line. Don't be surprised if he goes out this year and beefs up the defensive line a little bit, because that's Harbaugh football. It's trenches 101. And that's what I love about Harbaugh. He's consistent. He's going to dominate the trenches. I mean, I've seen Kenneth Grant mock to them as well. So I think there's some other teams to dodge. Well, I just had to try to reel you in. And I'm hopeful. If you're right, you're right. If it happens, I'm cool with it. I'm not going to be mad. Let me just get that out there. But again, I just don't make a move like that unless it's for a quarterback, me personally. But I'm sitting in my office. I'm not a GM.
No, I dig it, man. But I think we're gonna getting putting a little misinformation out there in the sense of this. I'm not saying it's probable. Yeah. I'm saying that's the only reason that I'm talking about it, because that's the path. I could easily see. I'm not gonna say easily, but if there's a path, I see it like this. And because I've already seen it talked about, Mason Graham's attributes, like he doesn't have the 34 plus inch wingspan. Like there's attributes that he doesn't have. Honestly, I don't think that his speed's going to be crazy when he goes to the combine. He's not a crazy 40-yard dash guy. I think his 40-yard dash is probably going to be in the 5s. It's probably going to be it'll probably be in the 5s. I'll say that. I don't think that he's going to be that 4'8", 4'9" guy, you know what I mean, or whatever. But he's a dog, right? That's what I mean by football player. Is his strength going to be crazy? Yeah, absolutely, it's probably going to be crazy. But he's one of those guys that, regardless of what the 40-yard dash time, 10-yard shuttle, and all of that BS is, his wrestling comes out, his hand fighting comes out, his leverage comes out, his nastiness, his will, his motor, his football toughness comes out on the film, man. And I think that's what is gonna be the difference. So, bottom line for me, if people shy away and they start chasing these athletic freaks that test like crazy, and I could easily see, man, you know, a path like that. So that's what kind of made me be more willing to even have a conversation about the potential of it happening. Because I do think there is an easier path to get to 10, 11, 12, 13. There's some things that we can do. And I'm not putting anything past Brad Holmes as far as this, man. When I look at this draft, there's a lot of similar guys. So it's going to be Mason Graham to me is like one of the ones that kind of stands out as an anomaly in the draft. But there's a lot of guys that are similar. So if you're like, hey man, I don't value that position, or I got guys that can play that position already, maybe you're a little bit more willing, or you're a team that says, hey, I don't think that I'm one first round pick away from getting what we need to be a successful team. Although this guy might be great, we need pieces. So maybe I'm cool with swapping my first rounder this year and then getting some extra picks to make my team better over time. And then with 2 first round picks the following season, there's a lot you can do. Maybe if you have a decent season, and you can use those first round picks to trade up in the front of the draft, or you just get 2 really good football players, man, because regardless if you're pick 1 or pick 32, you should be able to get a football player that can help your football team in the first 32 picks, man, in my opinion. So I don't know. The potential is there. Is it probable? Heck no, it isn't, man, but there's a path.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just looking at the while you're talking, I was looking at the NFL draft order just out of curiosity. And like you were saying, like if Mason Graham falls to a certain point, I'm just looking. I think after 12 is the Cowboys, and then you got the Dolphins, the Colts, the Falcons. I'll tell you this: you can mark my words. If he falls past the Cowboys, when you feel your phone vibrate after that, just know that it's me, and it's going to be me saying, "Brad, go get him." And I'm talking about Mason Graham. Okay, so I think if he's in that range, man, I think moving up 16 picks is something Brad has done. He's done it when he moved up to go get JMO. He moved up, what was it, 20 picks, and the price wasn't so high. So it's not impossible. Just thinking about that, it bounced off the top of my head. I'm sure someone will comment it who doesn't watch the whole show and say, "Oh, Brad did this," and I'll be like, "Yeah, I know, I said that in the show." He has moved up 20 spots before to get a player and didn't cost us a first round pick. So that's another thing we could take into effect is maybe it's similar to that Minnesota Vikings trade where I can't remember exactly what we gave up, but I know we didn't give up a first. If it's something like that, Brad, I'll be Mason's pad boy for the off season. Like I'll come bring his pads to his locker room. I'll do whatever we got to do if I can keep a first round pick for next year and get the best pass rusher in the league or in the draft this season, arguably. Let me ask you a question: is Mason Graham your number one prospect?
I can't say that he's my number one yet, man. I got to see how he tests. I got to see, what goes on, how some other guys test. There's some guys that I really like in this draft, and I've just been coming up with kind of like similar to the last couple of drafts, man. I've been coming up with paths to do the things that I'm trying to do. I look at our roster, man, and I think of how I want to bolster it and where I can see guys playing and fitting for us. That's kind of how I came up with that path with that D line. I think, signing Josh Sweat would be phenomenal. Now I've solved a lot of problems signing Josh Sweat, and then drafting Mason Graham, and then doing the right things with those other pieces. I think that could solve a lot of problems for this defense, man. I've been screaming at everybody. I don't think that the only path for us is getting one of these crazy uh, 25, 20, $30 million guys. I think that we can get some things done with some 10 million, $15 million guys, and then some guys on some rookie deals that could be pretty good for us moving forward. Making the moves like that could solidify us for a long time. Again, getting into those contracts. I can't see Aiden Hutchinson getting signed for less than 5 seasons. All right. We just re-signed Aleem McNeil. All right. Mason Graham would be the next 5 years. I can't see Josh Sweat getting anything under 3 seasons. So you think for the next 3 seasons, that would be our D line. All right. Our offense is pretty locked up outside of role players like guys like Timothy Patrick and stuff like that. Man,
Yeah, maybe
we'd be looking.
sprinkling a guard, center, tackle
I
somewhere
was
along
I
the
was just about to
lines.
say next season's draft, we'd be looking for a guard to replace Kevin Zeitler. That's what we'd be looking for. Like we wouldn't. You don't have to. You don't need pick a first round pick to find a guard. All right. So and then Lord forbid, Geo or somebody develops, man, into something, because Geo is still a freak athlete. I'm not gonna say that he's gonna be the answer, but I haven't given up on him. So I don't know, man. I just feel like for me, it would be ideal. Now, there's some other guys too, man, that play some damn good football that are D tackles, man. So, are they Mason Graham? No, but they're pretty good. So we'll see, and we'll get into some other guys. There's some other paths that I think can be really, really solid paths. They're not Mason Graham beautiful, but they could be solid, and we could do something similar, similar to what I'm talking about. So we'll see, man. It's kind of giving breadcrumbs to what I'm thinking about for the this upcoming season, man. But we can fix our problems with this draft. It doesn't have to be us making a big time trade.
Anything else for tonight?
I'm excited, man, for this draft. I'm excited to continue talking about these players again. For the people that don't understand, we're not only talking about one or two players. We're going through and we're talking about a lot of guys moving forward. As news comes out too, we're going to talk about a little bit of news and some other things as it pops up. But for the next few weeks, you're going to see guys getting broke down that could be draft prospects. You're going to see paths for potential trade pieces. You're going to see kind of thought processes of what we think could actually happen for the Detroit Lions, would actually make sense in our minds. Feel free to critique us, question, drop your comments, what you think should happen in the comments, man, because I'm excited to banter back and forth and see where everybody's at. Are they pro Mason Graham? Are they pro Myles Garrett? Would they be cool with this type of scenario, or are they still all in on Myles Garrett? Because I don't know, man. I just feel like this is a path that solidifies us and doesn't break the bank. We can continue to re-sign our guys. Just makes sense to me.
I got two things, William.
Fire it
One,
away.
I know we talked a lot of Michigan football today, a lot of Michigan Wolverines. For our Buckeye fans out there, trust me, we got something planned for Jack Sawyer too. All right, we're doing some research on him. When it comes to NFL, Detroit Lions, if you guys haven't been watching the show, rivalries are dead. Once college football is over, it's all about who helps the Detroit Lions. So we're preparing a little something for Jack Sawyer. He's been another name in a lot of our comments. We haven't ignored it. We're not ignoring it because we're Michigan fans too. I got to give you a little slap on the wrist, Will. Shame on you, because that was first of all, phenomenal highlight reel that we put together there that you brought in. But he didn't have any of his best game, in my opinion, was Alabama Rose Bowl last year. If you want to see Mason Graham dominate a football game, go watch the Rose Bowl from 2023. You'll see absolute domination along the defensive line. But his highlights, that's everyday stuff that we're used to seeing. So if you're not familiar with him, he does that shit on a regular basis. So it's easy to just throw a highlight up there because his film will back it up. Stick around, hit that like, and we'll be back later with another show.
Peace.